Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the June tip of the month. Time just seems to be flying. I can't believe we're almost halfway through 2022. I leave along with my wife Barry and my friend and colleague Gary Hart next week for New Zealand. We are going to go down under and do our winter solstice workshop on the South Island as we reach here in the Northern Hemisphere summer solstice. We're going to turn around and go to winter solstice where we're going to have some very short days. Sunrise will probably be around 7:45ish, if I recall. It's been a couple of years because of COVID, and sunsets at 4:45. And it's a fantastic workshop. If anybody's hearing this and you want a last minute jump on board, shoot me an email, don@donsmithphotography.com, and we will get you taken care of. Okay, what I want to do today, if you have been following me on social media lately, you know I've finally taken the plunge into drone photography. And I wish I could sit here today and tell you this is a Sony drone, but unfortunately it's not. It's a DJI, Mavic 3. And I'm not here to talk about the drone. I'm here today to talk about the processing of this image, uh, just as much as I would talk about any image captured on any of my Sony gear. I have been told by a well-respected colleague who knows a lot about drones that this is a Sony sensor inside of these drones. I hope that's true because I happen to think the world of Sony sensors. I haven't been able to get that confirmed by Sony. I don't know if they can confirm that to me. But I hope the information I got is right. If I do learn more, I will update it in the section down below here. Um, but again, I'm not here to talk about drone specifics or different types of brands of drones. I will say, however, I wish Sony would come out with a drone in a price point comparable to these types of drones, $2,000 to $3,000 range. Um, I think they would just knock it out of the park if they do. So Sony, if you're listening, maybe you got something in the works, maybe you don't. I really wish you would offer something at the lower end. You've got the one at the higher end. I just can't justify buying that for what I'm doing right now. Okay, so one of the cool things is this particular drone happens to have two cameras. One is their standard 24 millimeter camera f2.8, and it is razor sharp. I can set it up in RAW mode. Then they have a second camera that I seem to be learning more and more about every day, and I don't really like where it's headed, that it was never intended to be a camera to be used, and it's a telephoto camera. It's coming out now that the company said this camera was more to just zoom in on places you may want to fly and then go back into this mode. But a lot of videographers and still photographers liked it so much, they started using it. I used it last night on a shoot. It wasn't this particular shoot. This was more of a training run in the middle of the day, learning how to fly the thing. But the only way I can figure out how to get it into RAW mode is go into a timed exposure, and that starts at 2 seconds. So now you run into a lot of other issues of blurriness, that type of thing. So I'm gonna stay on that and see if I can find out a little bit more for you, and I'll put that down in the description below if I can get more updated information on that. But we are going to be working on a DNG RAW file today. This is right out of the camera, and I am going to do this in Lightroom. I do want to say as we go through this, let me close up before we even start processing this. Let me go down to lens corrections, and you can see if I enable profile corrections, it says it defaults to built in. And if I come down to DJI, I'm looking for the Mavic 3. It's just not even in there. So I'm going to take that off. I also work with the software Photolab 5 from DxO. And guess what? They do have a profile in their software for both JPEGs and RAWs coming out of the Mavic 3. So just heads up. I just started playing with it before I recorded this video, but I'm going to keep this all Lightroom based, and we'll just, I'll maybe do a video another day using the DxO Photolab 5. Okay, and by the way, Adobe, if anybody from you are watching, let's hustle it up and get those profiles out for this. Okay, um, usually I'm just going to go through and show you normally how I start the process in Lightroom, a few of the tweaks I make, and then a couple of things. We're going to have to fix this bow up here because this was a 24 millimeter lens that was angled down and we got a little bit of distortion. I'm going to do that in Photoshop. I like their tool better. And then we're going to work on this landscape over in here and try to bring out, the day I was flying, we had this water was beautiful turquoise and it would transition out to kind of a cobalt blue. So we're going to see if we can bring that up. And then I'm going to show you my favorite tool lately in Photoshop, and that's the selection tool. And this is actually back here. I'll tell you where we were flying. We were up on Highway 1. I live in Morro Bay, California, and we were about a half hour north. This approximately 15 miles north of Cambria on Highway 1. And this is Point Piedras Blancas Light Station. And if you're familiar with the famous elephant seals, back over in this cove back here is where the elephant seals would be. There are no elephant seals up along here, so I wasn't disturbing them. I was kind of up here all on my own, and it got really windy out here, and when I started to fly, I got about 2/3 of the way down to the light station, and I got a warning that the winds were nearing 30 miles an hour, and I didn't want to lose my drone on my second day out. So I just brought it back home and called it a day. All right. One of the things when I go into Lightroom, I want to talk about the color here. And I don't really get any choices here. If I fly this open, I will get some presets over here. But I'm just going to close that back up. I'm just going to leave it. You only get color and monochrome in here. But I am going to hit the auto button because this just seems to be really good in Lightroom nowadays. You can see how it takes the histogram. It doesn't blow any of the highlights, which would be this white water breaking off the waves here. It gives me just a smidgen of blacks. If I hover over the black and hold my Option or Alt key, I'm on a Mac. This is about what you want because I've mentioned this numerous times over the years. When you go to print, you want a little of what we call Dmax, or black density in your images. You don't, however, want to take the whites, and that's at plus 35 because I'm going to return that, and start blowing the whites out. You just don't want to do that, okay? So it's going to reset to 0. Let me just tap back in 35, and we're back to where we're at. I'm not going to do anything with tone curve, hue, saturation, color. I am going to drop in there because here is my favorite tool. If you've never visited hue, saturation, and color in Lightroom, you're doing yourself a disservice. As you open it up, I could click over here and get all 3 panels opening up, and I think I'll do that just for the sake of this demonstration. So we have 3 choices. We can work with the hue. Well, the hue is, I don't go in there much. Think of a red apple, and if I took the red slider on the hue and started moving it, I could saturate that red. I could shift it and make it more rich. I could lighten it up. You know, color studies have shown that we all perceive different colors differently. And I'm by no means an expert with that, but I do believe that's true. So part of that explains why when we come back to our computers, we all have a different visual reference of what colors look like when we were out on location. I'm going to skip over saturation because this is the one I do use. Luminance, think of terms of black and white. What it's doing is it's altering the, in all the different colors, the adjoining black and white that's underneath that particular color. And I hope I'm explaining that and that makes sense. Push up. No, I think it is finding it as aqua, so I don't want to take it too far. I'm not really liking what it's doing to the blues. So I think I'm going to take that up just a little bit more. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click into the blues here and I'm going to desaturate them a little. I think they came up too much. So it's not all addition when you go to these tools. Sometimes it's an addition, and you can see I've subtracted blue out of there by -47. If I want to put some back, maybe I've subtracted a little too much. This is so subjective, you guys. We could all sit here. We could have all been out here on this same scene. We would have all seen it better. I just remember how stoked I was. I went out in the middle of the day, number one, where I normally don't shoot. I tend to shoot, I'm the edge of the day shooter. But I was trying to learn how to fly this thing. It was more of a trip to go out 2 days in a row, actually, to learn how to fly this thing and get comfortable with it. And then last night I went up and put it up in the air at the proper time, as I feel. So I'm going to bring that back with the blues about right there. Let's just leave that alone before I make more of a mess out of it. One thing I will say about this particular drone, it is, as a raw file, it's already very sharp. I haven't been having to add any sharpening at all. In fact, I'm just going to leave it alone at default here in Lightroom. If you work with that telephoto lens and you have it come out in JPEG, I think they overcooked the sharpening on it way too much. It's very, very sharp. I own an iPhone 12 Pro Max. I would liken it kind of to the sharpening in that, which I've always thought is a little too crispy. For those of you that own that that phone, you know what I'm talking about. But, you know, we're all different on sharpening too. So I just tend to not want to get these pictures so overly sharp they start looking crunchy to my eye. We've already gone over lens corrections. Transform, I'm going to do this in Photoshop with their lens filter. I think it's a little bit better. Nothing in effects. The calibration, now this is going to hit it at a raw level, so we're not altering the file at all. I'm going to try just amping those blues up. Just, you know, you can go way overboard, but just a little bit, okay? Because it was such gorgeous color on the 2 days that I have gone out. We've had our first little mini heat wave out here in California for the summer, and I know inland from us, about 25 minutes inland, it's 110 degrees today as I'm recording this, and it's 70 degrees here on the coast. So I'm very happy I'm sitting here on the coast and not inland. But the fog will eventually come back in, and that will be a lot of fun to fly in and out of the fog also. Okay, I think this is about all I'm going to do in Lightroom. So I am going to go ahead and we're going to open this up into Photoshop. Okay, so now we're back in Photoshop. First thing I want to do is take care of this Boeing horizon, and I'm going to do that by coming up to Filter, go to Lens Correction. That was caused because this lens is similar wide angle to what a 24 millimeter would be on your full frame digital camera. So anytime you kind of angle those up or down, you're going to tend to bend and bow lines here. I'm going to try first just to come over with the old drag, you know, this has been around forever. This drag the line tool, and you just go to each side of the two places you want to go, and let's see if that works. Did a little bit of a job, but I'm still seeing a little bit of a bow in there that I don't like. So I'm going to come up top. This is the Remove Distortion tool. If you look to the right, it tells you what the tool does. Drag towards or away from the center to correct distortion. So I'm going to click here. This distortion still looks like it's bowing up just a tad to me. So I'll click in the center, and you see the screen kind of splits. And it's going to, like, the left hand of the screen will go first, and then the right hand will catch up with it. I'm just moving very, very slowly, and I think I like that. So I'm going to click OK. And now we've got this horizon straightened out. I guess we could make a point right here. It's a little low, but you know what? I'm going to live with it because I want to get in to more of the meat and potatoes of what I want to teach you here. And that is, if I hover the mouse over here, this object selection tool. And I can't remember exactly how long ago Photoshop added this. I have really become a huge fan of it. So what I want to do is I want to work, first of all, on the land over here. I want to do two things. There was a lot of the green over here in the shrubbery of whatever you would call it, rabbit brush on the coast. It was more green to my eye, and the sand was a little brighter. So I'm going to come here to select it. I'm going to click on it. Now I get two choices up here if you follow the cursor, rectangular or lasso. I think in this case, I'm going to use Lasso. So I want to click on my object selection tool, want to make sure I'm in Lasso, and I don't want to really pick up all these rocks in here. I want to pick more of the sand up down in here. So I'm just going to draw loosely. You don't have to be very, careful. I'm going to come under the buildings because I'm going to show you, I think, a better way of getting those buildings. Now, this lasso tool may not get it all in one click, but let's see what it does. Okay, pretty good. Now, it got the light station itself, so I'm going to subtract that, and I hold down my Option or Alt key, and that takes that away. You can see there's still a few little slight areas there. Oops, let's bring that back up. Yeah, it's not wanting to take those out. Let's see if we can take this out. Okay, and then I'm going to hold the Shift key because I can see some of the sand wasn't selected and some up in here wasn't selected. So let's go right across and right under and see if it will pick that up. We'll do that again. And this time I'm going to come around and hook it to there. And now we're going to come, it just takes patience. And I'm going to come under here and keep it down there. Just connect it into there. There, we've got, oh, no, I see I'm missing one more spot down here, right? So let's just hold the Shift key again. See if we can take that in and then add it all together here where I come back over in here. It'll seem frustrating at times. You'll think, well, why does he like this tool so much? It doesn't work. It's getting better with every iteration. It's still not perfect. There, we've gotten it. So that's why I use it. Okay, I've got the Tony Kuiper stuff up. We've gone over this a bunch. All of this is found all up in here. So all you want to do is either go and click on the curves here, or, oh gosh, you want to come up here. I don't use this anymore. Yeah, and you go to Image Adjustments, and you would go to Curves. So I'll just do it off Tony Kuiper's. And now I've got this mask selected for the landscape, and it's just a little bit on the edge here. It's not going to really matter. Let me click back over here, Option click. And now I'm going to bring up the Curves tool, and we're just going to raise that up and bring out a little bit of lightning there. And if I want to add contrast anytime I do this, because a lot of times when you light an image, you flatten it, it loses its pop. So I'm going to add, I usually will go up about a quarter line up above it and just add another line and steepen it, and that'll add some contrast. I also want to see if I can bring in some blues and maybe some colors in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a hue saturation layer. I don't have to recreate the mask. I just hold down my Option or Alt key, push on the mask we've already created, and now it attaches to that tool. And I will take the targeted adjustment tool, and let's first put it down in the sand here. It sees that as yellows, and you can see that starts, oh, it even starts to pop up some of the yellow mustard that was in here. Let me see if when I click in here, which looks green to me, boy, it sees that as blues. And no, I really don't like the look of that. So we're not gonna, let's just go up here and reset that to 0. So I think really it's the yellows that are gonna do it. I'm gonna see if there's any reds in this. Just a little bit. And that's, I think this is just kind of dried out ice plant that's along the edge there. And now I've kind of got this area looking a lot better, right? Okay, remember I said I want to select these buildings and bring them up? So I'm going to go back to my object selection tool, but instead of using lasso, I'm just going to go to rectangle this time. Let's see if this works. So I'm going to draw that across like that, and let's see if it will snap to those buildings. Voila. And it came underneath here, so remember we just go the Option tool. Whoops, you know what I want to do? I want to go back into lasso mode. I'm in rectangle mode still. And we're going to subtract this out. I should have blown that up to do it. Yeah, that did a good job. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to attach this one, because this is a little, I could do it to a curves, but I think it'll be a little easier to see if I attach it to a levels. So you have on a levels, you have blacks, you have whites, and you have midtones. So let's slide. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way. You want to go to the left to lighten up. That's too much. I don't want to bring out any edge detection on there. And let's see if I lighten up with the whites, if that does. Yeah, that just pops it a little. Now, let me get out of here. I'm going to come over here to the layer stack, and I'm going to turn that eyeball on and off. See the job we've done? So now let's turn both these eyeballs off, and all three of them actually. So there's where we were when we first came in, selected the landscape and lightened it up and made it a little contrastier. Now we bumped in, punched in the color, and now we came in here and we lightened up the building. I'm not going to go back into lens correction. I could go back into lens correction and straighten this up. It's pretty easy. They even have an auto detect on it, and you just draw a line from the base to the top and it will kind of shift everything over the way it looks. But I am kind of pressed for time, and I'm out of time here. As I said, we're getting ready to go to New Zealand. Oh, I did say the last thing that I would do if I wanted to do my crops, because remember we're in 4/3. I think I'm going to flatten this image now, and let me bring that back up, and I'm just going to minus it down a little bit. Let's go to our tool that I already have set up for 3:2 ratio, like you would see in your digital camera if you had a full frame camera, not a 4/3 camera. And you could play around with this crop in here and move, you know, I actually kind of like where it fell right in there, but you could play around, and I don't want to crop in from the sides. That's what I'm hesitant about. I'm looking and I'm going, well, let's just click on it and see how that looks. I think I like that better. And let's undo it. And we'll redo it. Yeah, I think I kind of like it better with the 3:2 crop. One thing I do at the end of all of these, I go back into Adobe Camera Raw. Now, here's the thing to remember. If you're going back into Adobe Camera Raw, you would have to do it from your filter in Photoshop if you don't have the Tony Kuiper. And regardless, you're not going back in with the original RAW file. You're going back in with this image that would be more of a TIFF style image. So you're not getting the full functionality as if you were starting over with the raw file, and I hope that makes sense. And what I normally do is I will just check this histogram, and I'll go up under basic again, and I'll see if we can add anything more to this. You can see no whites are clipping. There's my whites clipping there. I'm going to back them off till they go away. So that comes right back down to 0 or +1. The blacks still look great. I mean, we could possibly lighten up just a hair on the shadows. I don't want to go too much. I could try if contrast would add anything, just a tad, just pops it a little. It's really a slight amount. You can see I went probably about right there, +8, +13. Now I would click OK, and I would come back out, and that would be about it. It's I would now go in and change my image mode to 8-bit. Because this would get sent out to my lab. I can't, or my lab. Well, it could go out to the lab for printing. It can't go to my, it can't go to Getty Images, who's my stock agency yet. And there's a big reason. I'm only registered to fly as a recreational flyer right now. You get these drones, you have to get approved by the FAA. You have to register them, and then you have to take a test, even as a recreational flyer, called a trust test. And it comes in 4 stages. You go through the practice sessions, you read, and then you take the test, and you can go back as many times you want to pass it. When I get back from New Zealand, my plans are to take the commercial test so I can start selling these images. And you know, the FAA is over these drones now. They're making the calls on everything. So if you follow the FAA guidelines, I even have their app, which is called Before You Fly. So I check when I pull up to these areas, am I legal to fly here? And as they will say yes or no, you're in an uncontrolled or a controlled area. This happened to be an uncontrolled area, and as long as I stay 400 feet or under, I'm good to go. All right, so that's kind of a quick way on how to do a few things in here. To recap, we walked you through how to do Lightroom, do some basic adjustments. And then I came in and we tried to level out that horizon line of the ocean and the sky as best we can. And then we worked on the landscape itself and then the buildings. And then just went back into Adobe Camera Raw with the filter now, not the complete raw file, and just made sure we had this image looking pretty good. All right, so I'm ready to start packing, and it's going to be weird because we're going through a heat wave, and to be packing for winter is always weird when you're going to be doing that, but it's going to be beautiful over there, I think. It's snow in the Alps, and again, if you got a last minute, you want to join us, get a hold of me right there, Don at donsmithphotography.com. Next month, keep the ideas rolling into me. Let me know if you want me to do a video targeting something you're interested in. I try to stick with some processing, usually Lightroom, Photoshop, maybe some Luminar. We're kind of hooking up with Luminar now. We're going to do some exciting things in our workshop. I'm looking forward to that. Great product, Luminar Neo. If you don't have it, go get it. It will work with Lightroom, works with Photoshop, and yes, you can use it as a standalone also. Okay, gang, until next month, you all take care, and I'll talk to you when I get back from New Zealand.